Good evening, everyone. Congratulations again to our newly tenured faculty and staff members. We are so proud of you. We are going to move on now to the official part of the evening, the public meeting of the City School District of Albany Board of Education. So as people find their way to a seat or to the door, we are going to get started. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Ann Savage. I'm the president of the City School District of Albany Board of Education. On behalf of the board, I welcome you to our meeting. The audio from tonight is being recorded, and the recording will be made available to the general public on our Board Docs platform. If you plan to speak in public comment tonight and address the board, you will find a sign-up sheet over there on that table by that green box. And if you would like to speak tonight, please make sure that you have signed in. The table also holds copies of the papers of the documents we're going to discuss tonight, which you are welcome to take. We have also provided digital devices, which will allow you to access the documents electronically, or you can do that from your own device. If you choose to do it from your own device, the easiest way is from the button on the board page at albanyschools.org/BOE. We invite those of you who choose to join us as we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag In addition to saying the Pledge of Allegiance, we always focus our meeting by restating the mission of the City School District of Albany, which is to work in partnership with our diverse community to engage every learner in a robust educational program designed to provide the knowledge and skills necessary for success. Superintendent Adams, do you have a report for us tonight?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much, Madam President, members of the board. I would like to begin by wishing everyone a very, very happy new year. I hope your holidays were enjoyable and relaxing. I'm very excited to begin the 2020 school year, well, spring portion of the school year, second semester, and looking forward to all the successes that lie ahead for us this year. Speaking of success, last Saturday, I had the privilege of joining the Albany High School robotics team as the rest of the world tuned in for the launch of the 2020 First Robotics Challenge. The students were so very excited during this annual reveal. In this competition, teams of high school students from around the globe are challenged to build a robot that represents and responds to a specific task. You may recall that Falcon Team 1493 won the regional competition at RPI 2 years ago, and their robot from the last year, Mark Cuban, was acknowledged by the acclaimed television show Shark Tank's creator, Mark Cuban, after a very respectable performance at the RPI competition. Each year's challenge is unveiled at the same hour, and joining me at Albany High for the 2020 announcement were some 50 students, alumni, faculty members, mentors, faculty advisors, and along with Nicole Lindeman and John Wild, we were able to experience the big reveal. After the challenge was announced, I stayed a little while to listen to the discussion among our team members. They were so very impressive. I look forward to seeing the robot that they build and to cheering them on in their performance at the regional New York Tech Valley First competition, which will be held March 11th through 14th at RPI. So please mark your calendars. It is an exciting event. You may learn more about the specifics of this challenge on our website, albanyschools.org. At this time, we have some bittersweet news. As you know, Mr. Jack Grogan has resigned from his position as our district-wide Director of Security to accept a similar position with CDTA. Mr. Grogan's last day with us is tomorrow, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank him for his dedicated service to our students, families, staff, and community over the past decade. Mr. Grogan joined the district as head of security at Albany High School in 2009. He served in that capacity for 4 years before accepting the district-wide role as director in the year 2013. Mr. Grogan has been tireless and thorough in all of his work. his personal efforts, his leadership of our security team, his role as a liaison with law enforcement, and other partners have helped ensure the safety and security and a positive learning environment for all of our students. We are grateful to him for his service, and we wish him well in this new opportunity. So let's give him a round of applause, please. We are in the process of searching for Mr. Grogan's replacement. Until that appointment is made, Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Instruction, Lori McKenna, will serve as our primary point of contact for all district-wide security matters. Applications for our elementary magnet lottery are now available, and this week we held an open house at our magnet school programs. Monday was the dual language program at Delaware Community Schools. Tuesday was Montessori Magnet School. Wednesday was Thomas O'Brien Academy of Science and Technology, and today and tonight we had Albany School of Humanities. The magnet lotteries begin with kindergarten at each of these 4 schools. Applications are due January 31st. We have a separate lottery for pre-kindergarten in all of our elementary schools, including the magnets. Those applications will be available on Friday, February 3rd. Please visit albanyschools.org for more information. During this month, all district schools will be taking part in our mid-year NWEA benchmark testing. The testing window began Monday and will end February 7th. The tests take place over a few days at each school. These tests will monitor our instruction to date and inform our instruction for the second half of the school year. Please note that all district schools and offices will be closed on Monday, January 20th, in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Region exams will be offered January 21st through 24th, and only the students taking the exams should report to Albany High School. Our middle schools and elementary schools will operate on their usual schedules during the region exams. I would now like to invite Hackett Middle School Principal, Mr. Mike Polino, to the microphone to tell us about the great things that are happening here at Hackett. Can you hack it?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming to Hackett Middle School tonight and for giving us, I've been told on numerous occasions I have like 3 minutes, with in Polino times like 7 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. But I am joined tonight. I have the honor tonight of being joined by one of our new assistant principals, Miss Lisa House, and one of our very talented 8th graders, Anna Flanders. We're going to start tonight by quickly going over, I got to get this part right, so Andre doesn't get mad at me. There we go. Going over our school mission and PBIS mission statements, as well as our goals and guiding principles as they pertain to Hackett Middle School. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Flanders.
Our guiding principles are our school mission and our PBI mission is that we celebrate the strength of our diversity and foster a learning community based upon mutual respect and supportive relationships to achieve our full potential as leaders, learners, and citizens. The goals?
Yeah.
Yeah, I read these two. Okay. Our PBIS mission is that we celebrate the strength of our diversity and foster a learning community based upon mutual respect and supportive relationships to achieve our full potential as leaders, learners, and citizens.
That's why you're smarter than I am. It's a typo on my fault. But go ahead and read our goals.
Our goals are to ensure the academic, behavioral, and socio-emotional success of all students, create a school environment where all students feel welcome and supported, implement culturally responsive practices to establish a positive school climate, and set high academic standards for all students. build partnerships with our families to support them in ensuring the success of their children.
As important as those guiding principles are for Hackett Middle School, on the first day we come back to school in the summer and we have the superintendent's convocation, we also have a faculty meeting on the first day. It's one of our longer faculty meetings. And regardless if you're a veteran teacher, a first-year teacher, a TA, someone who works in the cafeteria, these are the building blocks that we live by. And I think they're important to, going the wrong way, to share with everyone. We interviewed yesterday for a computer teacher, and to make it kind of simple for Hackett, don't really need to ask a lot of questions. I refer to these building blocks and I say, are these things that you can handle, these things that you think you can accomplish? Because if you can accomplish these 5 bullets, the rest of it's pretty easy moving forward. And so I wanted to share them with you tonight because I haven't shared them with you in the past. Our first building block is we dot all the I's and we cross all the T's. Tonight was a busy night at Hackett Middle School. We had a modified girls game. We had a extended day program of 150 students. We had the 10-year reception and we had the board meeting. And we make sure we dot all the I's and cross all the T's there to make sure everybody's safe, everyone's supportive. Our fans from Niskayuna that we played today came in and felt welcomed, and that our kids presented ourselves in the most important way. The biggest one that we've gotten through to the building, because I know everybody always looks to the building principal, but it's not really about me, is the idea if you're going to lead, to lead. It doesn't have to be the building principal who's always leading. It could be a teacher. It could be a security monitor. It could be one of our quality students that I have sitting next to me. Everybody in our building is deemed to be a leader. The third one that we came across, and it was on an Ed TV piece, is everybody has to be a champion for every student. We want to make sure that all students who come into the building have the same opportunities. And we're okay. We have a little motto that says we have to storm sometimes to form. And so we're going to advocate for kids, and no one should feel uncomfortable if it's between the building principal or themselves, but we're going to be a champion for all students. The one that's probably taken over the most in our building, and it took a little while, but if anybody who's been part of Hackett knows this, Dr. Chatur knows this because he's had children come through the building. We tell everybody in the building that if nobody's told the kid today that they love them, then we're going to be the first. And when you come into it, it kind of parlays right into the last pieces. Hackett basically epitomizes a family mentality through all the kids, through all the teachers, the faculty, and the staff. So we throw the word family out a lot. We throw the word out love a lot. And so when I was talking to that teacher yesterday about the interview, I said, you got to make sure every kid gets out of here all day long. You got to be willing to argue with me a little bit to make sure that kids are getting what they need in terms of the resources. You have to love our kids, and then you have to have a supportive family. And if you can do all those things, the rest of it will take care of her place. She said yes. Matt and I spoke about it, and now hopefully she'll become part of our family in a couple of weeks. But those are the 5 building blocks that we share at the beginning of the school year with our faculty and staff.
Good evening and welcome. We have a lot of things that make Hackett special. On the presentation back there, we have 10 of them. You can scan them quickly. I won't read them all over, but there's so many things, from academics to behavioral to emotional support. We do it all, and we do it all really well, and we unite as a family to get it done and make us real special.
School administration and demographics. Hackett holds 636 students in grades 6th through 8th. Grade 6 has 1 team with 138 students. Grade 7 has 2 teams with a total of 264 students. Grade 8 has 2 teams with 234 students total. There are 5 middle-level self-contained classrooms as well.
Sure, there's a lot of folks. We have a lot of staffing here at Hackett Middle School. As you can see, there's a plethora of positions that we host here. We have 2 assistant principals, principal, 68 classroom teachers. We have E&L, reading, coaches. We have tier 2, tier 3. We have music. We have art, FACS, guidance counselors. We have non-district social and emotional support folks that come in and help us. We have social workers with an amazing full-service staff downstairs that provide the support for all of our students. Head of security, homeschool coordinator. We have a lot of security monitors. We have an avid site coordinator and 4 secretaries and a great staff for maintenance to help us keep our building running.
So before I send it right back to Ms. House for the next slide, this slide should have been titled "Thank You." This is a thank you to the Board of Education. This is a thank you to all of our district administrators. And this is a thank you to all of our community members, because without your support and guidance and hard work, all those people that are up there right now do not make this building as special as it is. So to the board, because we're in front of you right now, thank you for supporting everything we do at Hackett.
And this slide talks about our STEP focus and highlights. We do walkthroughs every week, multiple times in the week. We give our teachers direct feedback that's relative to the instruction to support our students. The teachers meet weekly with their data and literacy coaches to talk about student performance and next steps for them. And we really work hard on building longstanding relationships as part of our SET plan and as part of our family unit. We find that critical to the success of all of our staff and students.
With all the successes that we have, we still do have a couple obstacles here. And if you were to read carefully through our SET plan, one of those obstacles is chronic absenteeism. You're going to see, and it's going to look like I'm going to contradict myself in a minute, we have 95% of our students arrive to school every day. 95.2% of our students arrive to school every day. But that being said, if you look at the definition for chronic absenteeism and the number of days you can miss, we still do have a number of students who are having difficulty coming to school and arriving to school every day. And so that's become one of our biggest focuses. We have an attendance committee here at school that meets on a monthly basis with some supports from the district, and we review student attendance on a monthly basis. We look at student attendance and student tardies. We can get a little crazy in the building with our robocalls. We can get a little crazy with our letters home. We can get a little crazy home with our visits right to the door to talk to the parents about where we are. And so one of our challenges going forward, and I know it was our superintendent's point at the beginning about attendance matters, is we're doing very well at having our kids come to the building every day, but we do have a pocket of students who are having some difficulties getting there. And so we want to try to work with the families on what seems to be those roadblocks and to make sure that our kids are getting here all day long. Before we get into that slide, I have had the great fortune of being the Hackett principal now for 11 years. Yes, the hair is getting a little grayer every day. But in that great fortune and having the opportunity to present to the Board of Education, I've had the luxury of having some very fine young people sit next to me to do this presentation. There may be no finer person in the 11 years that I've been at Hackett than the young lady sitting next to me. And so before we go into our success, I've asked Anna to take a few minutes just to describe herself. I guarantee you will be impressed like we are with the number of accomplishments she has. And so if we can have 1 minute, I'd like for you guys to get to meet Anna Flanders.
Hello, my name is Anna Flanders. I attend the 8th grade at Hackett Middle School. I was told to tell my favorite subject, but the truth is I don't have one. I believe it is not the subject that makes a class, but the class that makes a subject. What I mean by that is, to me, forming a relationship with teachers and classmates is what motivates me to learn. What I enjoy about Hackett Middle School is that it is easy for you to establish a friendship and trust with the staff. They're always helpful, welcoming, and all above, all they want is what's best for my peers and I. A positive aspect of Hackett is the accessibility. Let me just say, I've been in the elevator possibly more times than any student in Hackett. And due to my injuries or surgeries, I'm very thankful for the elevators, ramps, and wide doorways. I'm still waiting for an elevator key, though.
That comes after tonight.
In this school, I participate in 2 extracurriculars, such as the wind ensemble, where I play flute and piccolo, and vocal music. I thank my teachers for educating me and helping my talents grow. Where do I see myself in the future? I see myself involved with animals of all kinds, either training or studying their behaviors. I also want to become a psychologist because I love helping people and listening to them. And that's a wrap for my little speech. I just wanted to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my opinions.
Just in case we don't know, and I told her I was going to do this today, we are in the presence of greatness, if you haven't figured that part out yet. Being the dad of two eighth-grade boys, I always would love to be in the presence of greatness. But the Board of Education, I'm sure some of us already know that I am sitting to me on my left-hand side, the Section 2 1-meter diving champ as an eighth grader. The New York State number 8 diver in the entire state at the 1 meters. And the part that we, this afternoon as we were preparing, laughed the most about is she's also one of my high honor roll students, which probably is the most important thing. And so we joke that here we are tonight, but something tells me maybe in about 10 years, we might be sitting next to a U.S. Olympian too. So don't forget where we're coming from. Here on this part. And she's going to do that part, right? Yep.
Sorry about that. The successes, excuse me, Hackett has had over the past several years, we do the Tier 2, Tier 3 academic supports. We have a really great, strong PBIS program in our building that we use every day, and our students and staff know all about it, and we really build it up, and it helps move us along. We have content data team meetings, excuse me, and data-driven approach subcommittees to help the academic and behavioral success of all of our students.
And so we joked today about what does that mean? For us, it means a lot. And so we tried to put it into numbers, and I only thought it'd be great if Anna kind of shared some of our successful findings from the first semester.
For the first quarter marking period, 333 Hackett Middle School students earned honor roll status. For the first quarter marking period, 522 Hackett Middle School students participated in the no referral celebration. And for the first quarter marking period, overall student attendance for Hackett Middle School was 95.2%.
That's just a little quick overview of what we do at Hackett every day. Again, I'm very thankful for the opportunity that was given to me 11 years ago to be the building principal. We thank you for the opportunity to present tonight, and if there's any questions, we would be more than glad to answer them.
Madam President, members of the board, that concludes the superintendent's report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Mike, and thanks, Anna. Congratulations again on your fine achievements this year. We're all very proud to be in the same school district as you, so thank you for being here tonight. So this brings us now to the part of our meeting we call public comment. It's going to be a particularly good public comment period tonight because there are 4 names on the list, 3 of which I recognize as students of the school district, City School District of Albany. So it's going to be a really good public comment. We always love to hear from our students. So I'm going to read now, guys, of those of you who do not come to board meetings usually and want to know what's going to happen. I'm going to read some words now that describe how this public comment works, okay? So it is our policy that we ask people to come and talk to us at this time during the meeting. And each person gets up to 3 minutes to say whatever they feel that they need to say. They should start by saying their name and what city they live in. And then this right here is Miss Wilson. And she has these pieces of paper. One says 1 minute left, and one says 10 seconds left. So it can be really nerve-wracking when you're speaking into the microphone. But you guys all know me, right? This is Alex's mom. You just look at me, tell me whatever you need to say, okay? Every once in a while, look at Miss Wilson. When you see that 1 minute, that means you've got 1 minute left. When you see 10 seconds, that means you have 10 seconds left, okay? The only other really important rule is that you can't say anything about any specific person by name, because we know that you wouldn't like it if your classmates said something about you by name on this audio tape that's available for everybody in the city to listen to, okay? So we give everybody the respect of saying, don't talk about people by their name in public. We're going to do that private. Anaya, do you have a question, honey? Do you have a question?
That includes adults and teachers.
Adults and teachers, yes. You can say generally, I'm happy about this, or generally, I'm not happy about this, but you should not say a specific thing about any adult or teacher, because our teachers are entitled to the same respect that our students are, that we don't talk about them in public. Okay, you guys know how this is going to work? All right, I'm going to read the name. You're going to come to this microphone right here. You're going to turn it on. It maybe is on already. It's on already. And then you just say what you need to say. Keep an eye on Miss Wilson, okay? So I see Camden and Anaya. Are you guys going to do it together? Yeah. Okay, come on up. So our first speakers tonight are Camden Allen and Anaya Williamson.
I'm Camden.
I'm Anaya.
We're from Albany. We are sixth graders at Myers, and we came from Montessori.
We have noticed that a first grade teacher has not had an assistant teacher since September.
I remember when I was in first grade, the assistant teacher was very important for the class.
In one way, it was to help watch over the kids and help them with what they were having problems with.
All kids need a lot of attention, and one person can't give all of it, but two people can work with the kids individually or work in small groups.
See, the Montessori method was to get the kids to have the best education they can get. They can't do that without an assistant teacher.
We thank the board for the time, and we would ask the board to follow up and make sure the hiring process goes through.
Thank you for your time, and that's our school mission.
Harlan Williamson.
Hello, my name is Harlem. I am a fourth grader at Montessori Magnet School. I was in a classroom in fourth grade and second grade, and I think that the kids in my teacher's class today should feel the same way as I felt, loved and respected by my teacher. They treated us like her family. She treated us like her family. Both my teachers gave us all the respect we deserved. Thank you for your time.
Good job, Harlan. The last name on the list is Sandra Allen, who is not a student at Montessori
I
Magnet
am
School.
not a student at Montessori. I do have a son that's in the first and second grade classroom in Montessori that the children were talking about. And you could see it was very hard for them not to mention teachers' names because the teacher is so well loved. And I know in this particular classroom where my son's at, it's making the difference as to where he's going to go in life, whether he is labeled a behavior problem or the needs that have been identified by the teacher are now being met by the school and going forward in a very positive direction for his education. So I just recently found out that there has not been a consistent assistant teacher since the beginning of the school year. They've had subs and they've had parent volunteers, and they have an exceptionally strong teacher who's covering a lot of the needs. But it's important to understand with Montessori education, the assistant teacher is really not an assistant to the teacher. The assistant teacher is an assistant to the children. Doing the shelf work, there's a lot of individual learning that takes place, and no child fails in that system because every child is worked with either as an individual or in small groups until they are successful. And seeing my daughter even going to middle school, she is so prepared. I am so excited she's been part of the school district and part of the education she has received because she is so prepared for sixth grade and middle school. So that's very exciting. And I'd like to see the same thing happen for my son. So my understanding is things have been progressing, and maybe it's in a good place, but my also understanding is this has happened a couple of times where we've been in a good place and things have kind of fallen through. So we wanted to just come tonight to thank the advocacy that has come from the superintendent's office and the assistant superintendent, and to just encourage to continue to follow up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that concludes the public comment period tonight, unless there's anybody who didn't sign up in all the rush of the tenure reception. Okay. So the next part of our agenda is what we call routine consent. This is the part of the meeting where we approve routine matters for the district, like contracts and field trips and personnel matters. We, the board members, review each of these carefully, and we vote on them with no discussion. That allows us to use our meeting time more efficiently. Nonetheless, each board member has the option to set aside any routine consent item in order to require a separate discussion and a separate vote on that item. So with that introduction, I'm going to entertain a motion to adopt the routine consent agenda. Ms. Wilson, may I have a second? Dr. Chator, are there any set-asides? Ms. Mann,
Items 20 and 21.
can you just do those by name in case I have the wrong number?
Okay, it's 20 is Amanique Akinyemi, and 21 is More Than Vision,
Okay.
LLC.
Yeah, I have them as 19 and 20. I think something shifted during the day. So Amanique Akinyemi, and More Than Vision. Are there any other set-asides? Mr. El-Minyawi.
The number 7, which is the extra classroom activity fund, and then number 27, which is the Big Five conference.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, so all in favor of adopting routine consent less the extra classroom activity fund, Monique Akinyemi, More Than Vision, and the Big Five conference. That is unanimous. So we're going to take the set-asides in order. Can I have a motion to adopt the extra classroom activity fund? Ms. Smith, seconded by Ms. Krejci. Is there any discussion? Mr. El-Minyawi.
It's actually just a question because I saw that the bowling line had $46,000 on it.
This is a constant amusement to those of us who become board members. We have an endowed bowling team. They got a big donation some number of years ago.
Okay, so it's not an error.
It is not an error. The bowling team is extraordinarily well funded through because of a donation from I assume, prior bowler. This was before I was on the board that it happened, but I assume it was a bowler who made that donation.
Right?
Any further discussion on our number? Okay. All in favor of adopting? That is unanimous. The next set aside is the contract for Amanique Akinyemi, who I'm not sure if I pronounced her name properly, even though I have met her, Amanique. I've met her several times, but I can't retain that one. Thank you. May I have a motion to adopt a contract? Ms. Smith, seconded by Ms. Krejci. I can't remember who's already gone.
Can we
Is
actually take both of them together?
Yes, we can. Let's take More Than Vision and Amanique Akinyemi together. We already have a motion. Ms. Bowie, who moved the first one? Vicky, are you willing to amend your motion? Yes. Okay, so we're going to stick with the same motion. And is there any discussion? Ms. Mann.
Well, I just wanted to point out that I'm glad that, we have folks in the community that are working with our children after school. And I'm going to mess up her name. Ms. Akinyami is offering, I think it's classical ballet and classical African dance. And in More Than Vision, Mr. Moore is, for I think the second year in a row, providing photography. And both end up with recitals and shows and things like that. And anyone who's been to a dance recital or a kids photography exhibit knows, the magic and the pride that comes with that. So I'd like to thank them and the community, and I'm happy to support this.
All in favor of adopting those two contracts? That is unanimous. May I have a motion to adopt the Big Five conference? Dr. Chator, seconded by Ms. Wilson. Is there any discussion? Mr. El-Minyawi.
So there was a question, but it moved to number 26, so let me just pull it up. Number 26. So, well, I think it's number 26 now. So, there is no termination provision which would be preferred. I just wanted to get a little bit of an understanding of what that is on the comments.
Ms. Roaring, would you?
This is a contract that would be up for renewal on an annual basis. The proposal tonight is that we enter into this agreement from January 1st through June 30th, 2020. This is at the behest of the Government Relations Committee and was discussed briefly at the last meeting, I believe. So that is where we sit with the proposal this evening. Based on our experience, I'm sure there would be additional conversation as to whether or not this is something the board wished to continue in 21-20. 2021.
So while the contract does not include a termination clause, it's only a very short-term contract that gets us through the end of the school year, right?
Yes.
Okay. Any further questions about that, Ms. Krejci?
I just couldn't remember from a previous discussion. Do you know who some of the other adjunct members are? In other words, the other members that aren't big, well, the ones that aren't Big Five, in other words.
Utica and
Mount Vernon.
Mount Vernon.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Any further questions about the Conference of Big Five Schools contract? Those following along at home, this is a lobbying entity that advocates for urban school districts that we will be joining in with. So may all in favor of adopting that contract? That is unanimous. That brings us to the end of routine consent and to my very favorite part of the agenda because I get to
Madam
turn.
President?
I even highlighted it on here. Look to the superintendent.
Okay.
Mrs. Adams, would you like the floor?
Yes, thank you very much. Madam President, members of the board, during routine consent tonight, as part of our HR information, we are so very pleased to announce that we have a new director of transportation, and Mr. So is here tonight. If you will please stand and be recognized. We want to thank you and welcome to the City School District of Albany. Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight. We're very happy to have you on board. Okay, so now we get to move on to the next section of the agenda, which is the policy section of the agenda, and I will turn it over to the chair of the policy committee, Dr. Shatura.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. All we have today are all action items. These were policies that we discussed briefly last time. So should I read them all together? Do you want to go one by one?
Let's do it this way. Board colleagues, is there anyone who does not intend to vote in favor of all of these policies? Okay. So with that said, without any amendments or anything. Okay. So folks in the audience, the way it works here is that we always discuss something one meeting and then we act on it the next meeting. You can always listen to the board meetings in between if you want to provide any comment. So we're going to act on a whole bunch of stuff. We talked about it last time, and so now we have no further discussion. So we're going to entertain a motion to adopt all of the policies that are listed on the agenda. Ms. Wilson, seconded by Ms. Mann. Is there any discussion? All in favor? That is unanimous. Wonderful. Thank you. So no discussion topics tonight? Excellent. All right. So that brings us now to the discussion portion of our agenda. The way we do it here, we set all the actions at the beginning, and then we move on to the discussion portion. So it would not be expected that the board would take any further action tonight. Unexpected things happen, but normally we would not take any actions later in the night. So that brings us to the 5-year capital plan. Who is going to cue this up for us?
I will. Okay. Good evening. We are moving forward with our 5-year capital plan, and at this time, Ms. Roaring and Mr. Mara will share this information. We know that much of this information you received it was part of the May 21st vote, and so we want to make sure that we give you an update. We know we do focus largely on the high school and the projects that we have, but sometimes we're not keeping you abreast of where we are along the way with some of those other items. And so that's what the purpose of this presentation is, to just kind of give you that update of where we are since the vote May 21st, where we stand in terms of some of those other projects in combination with the high school. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Ms. Roaring and Mr. Mara.
Thank you. I will say that it's not fair that I have to go after those wonderful kids. Okay. So we'll start out with the 5-year capital plan and our guiding principles, which obviously most of you know. I think our vision, our mission, and our goals, and I think more importantly our goals, is to increase student achievement, enhance the delivery of quality instruction, build our leadership capacity, increase accountability, and empower families to support and success of our children and partner with our diverse community. So what we did was, with CS Arch and Turner, we broke down our group of needs based on health and safety, climate control, and roofs and stuff like that. So we went with bidding group 1, which is going to bid February 2020, and construction this spring, summer. And obviously with roofs, you have to get them done, or the main building gets ruined more. So that's a cost at $558,000. As we move on to bidding group 2, we start with North Albany Middle School, which is the big one, as we all know. But also we incorporated Delaware, Montessori, Myers, Pine Hills, Sheridan Prep, and Academy Park. And the reason we kind of put these together with a big project is it's easier to get a bid in. When you have a bunch of small jobs, people don't like to bid them. So we put them together with the North Albany. So we plan on bidding this summer 2020, which is upcoming, and construction fall 2020 through 2023 at a cost of hash over $31 million. If you want to go over the projects, I'll go over them quickly. I don't want to bore you, but North Albany, obviously we have the renovations and the YMC purchase, but also Delaware Community. We're going to be doing the air conditioning and some other things like synthetic playfield, electronic sign, which seems to be in vogue now, paint the exterior. Montessori is also going to get air conditioning. We're going to work on the climate control system and upgrade the energy management system, and also electronic sign at $771,000 at Montessori. So Myers, which has been a hot topic, is to resurface the tennis courts. We're looking to do that in big group 2. Pine Hills, air conditioning, upgrade the management system, and Sheridan Prep, also air conditioning and upgrade the management system. Excuse me. I'll move on to bidding group 3, SCD submission June 2020. We're going to bid November, December 2020 with construction, basically in conjunction with the other 2020 and 2023 at a little over $13 million. Obviously the big one is Arbor Hill, but we also included Ash, Eagle Point, Giffen, New Scotland, Schuyler, Edmund, Hackett, Myers, and TCC, and Harry Gibbons. So I'll bore you a little bit with some of the finer points. Arbor Hill, obviously we're going to be doing interior renovations, replace the roof, management system, replace some of the electric system, the old air handling unit, which is very loud inside, replace the flooring, replace a section of the roof at a little over $8 million. Ash, we're dealing with, it's not as bad. We're dealing with carpet replacement with vinyl flooring, a little bit parapet wall remake, upgrade the energy management system, which is always good, electronic sign, and upgrade window balances at $855,000. And O'Neill, they're also getting their own electronic sign and reconstruct the gymnasium air handler. And Eagle Point also will get some upgrade in the energy management system and replace the window balance. All right, we have a lot going on here. So also Giffen, upgrade the energy management system, be more green. It's great. Renovate the bathrooms, address condensation issues, replace the classroom flooring, electronic sign, replace the classroom doors at $1.3 million. And Hackett, where we are today, replace the window balances, upgrade the management system, address the leak in the stairs, bunch of other things, correct the failures in the auditorium, replace the stair treads at $303,000. Excuse me. Back to Myers. We'll be upgrading the energy management system, electronic sign, modify lobby lights for better lighting and maintenance, and upgrade the site lighting. I'm getting towards the end, trust me. New Scotland is upgrade the energy management system, address water and moisture in the basement, electronic sign, replace the cast stone coping in the vestibule. So we're gonna spend almost $1 million over at New Scotland. Scholar Achievement, we're going to be, we're currently doing some work there through grant project, but we're also going to be doing a new 4th floor office and upgrade energy management system for a little over $100,000. Tony Clement, we're going to be working on some of the hardware in the stairwells, and doing a little bit of fencing and gating in the parking lot, and providing a LED mounted sign. And finally, at Toast, we're going to be renovating the front lobby steps, upgrading the energy management system, address pipe condensation, playground, which is needed, bathrooms, create a secure vestibule, and replace the wall pads in the small gym. And finally, Harry Gibbons, take care of some of the drainage at the rear of the building at 108. So for a total of bidding group 3 of a little over $13 million. Where do we stand? Is there any more? Is there any questions?
As some of you are aware, we've had some environmental concerns in several of our buildings this year. This evening, you were asked to approve a contract with Atlantic Testing, which will help facilitate the oversight of the work that needs to occur. We are anticipating this cost at this point of a little over $300,000, but we'll have a better idea once we bring in the engineer to look at some of the foundation work we're actually going to have to tackle at Eagle Point. So this is going to be a significant hit to the facilities budget this year, but it is certainly something that we will be working to make sure we have the resources to do.
So, board colleagues, there was a lot of detail in that presentation. I'm going to propose that first we just ask any overall questions, and then we can go to any specific questions. So why don't we just go right to left? As always, we're going to do one question at a time. So Ms. Krejci, why don't you go first?
Okay, so my general question is, once we get the approval from SED and get the bids in for each of these group plans, when will we know a little better exactly which thing might be done in which time frame? Would we know that after the bidding? Would we know that like next September or so?
Upon the bid, I think, excuse me, I'm sorry. Upon the bid, I think once we bid that, what we do is they have initial kickoff meeting, and then we work through which buildings we can work through and work on that works best for us and also the contractor.
I'm just going to add to that to say most of this work has to be done in the summer, so we'll be looking at the summer of 21 and summer of 22 primarily. We are looking to do some work at North Albany Middle School during the school year. As you know, we have reduced attendance at that building to allow for some of that to occur while school is in session.
Thank you, that was very helpful.
Anyone else with an overall question? Ms. Wilson?
Thank you for your presentation. I'm proud that we have, basically it kind of underscores that our commitment to equity is throughout every department and initiative, being that, you know, many schools that wanted electric signs are getting them, many schools that wanted air conditioning, and we were able to do that. It was painstaking, but we were, so that's great. I'm just curious if there will be a summary that will be sent out district-wide that will be more digestible sort of way that will be sent out that summarizes what we discussed here.
We can look at something like that. We normally would wait until we're a little bit further along so we can provide a little bit more detail to them in terms of what they can ultimately anticipate, timing, and things like that. That is the primary question I get when I'm in each of the buildings. When is this going to happen? When we refine that calendar, we would find it more helpful to share that.
Board colleagues, anybody else with an overall question? Mr. Elmanyawi?
So I saw that the electronic signs are kind of stuck into these different bidding groups. Could it be, or would it be wise to put them under their own bidding group and maybe get a better deal for the group of them from one person or one contractor?
I will say that our architects and construction managers have looked very detailed at the scope of work, and they have provided their professional recommendation to us that this is actually the best way that we can package those things to recognize both the economies of scale in terms of completing the work, but also in how we manage their services to us to make sure that we're doing that efficiently.
I will add that I asked a similar question at one point, and at least for Montessori, which is the building I know the best, part of the problem is that the sign is not the issue. It's the electrical work and the construction work, because you have to power that sign, which is not adjacent to the building. It's out in the world, so it's not, the sign piece is a small piece, but I hear what you're saying.
Is that why there's a difference in price?
Yes. So if you are familiar with SPA, for example, where we've done the sign this year, we ran into a significant issue in terms of running the conduit to power the sign because of what else is under the ground in those spaces. So we know that some of those are going to be a little bit more complex than others, and that is reflected in the costs that you see.
Ms. Smith?
Also on that point, it seems like we could be, I understand your point, but you could have a situation where the signs at Delaware or any of the other schools are happening later, yet all this work at Delaware is happening, maybe at the same time, if I'm understanding the way this is laid out. So, but I think it's a good question, but it makes sense to me the way that it's packaged.
Ms. Mann?
The issues with the foundation at Eagle Point, that's not listed in here, right?
No.
Okay.
So that was something that was not part of the scope in that pre-referendum. So that is something that we will look at having to tackle either through our operating budgets, most likely this year, because it is an immediate need.
That's right, yeah. Okay, very good, thanks.
Dr. Tudor, did you have a question? Okay. So I have an overall question. The list of projects that we just saw, does it match exactly the list of projects that we adopted? Or is it meant to? Is it supposed to? And I'll tell you the why. The one that triggered for me is I know Montessori had intended to resize their nursing space in order to create another instructional space, and I did just double check. It was definitely on the list we adopted, and I definitely did not see it on this list. Is that because there's another something happening, or what does that mean?
It may have simply been overlooked when the grab of each of those items was brought forward. In the chart, they were not grouped necessarily by school, so that may have just been a simple oversight.
Okay, so if we wanted to double check that, this is part of the same question, is the estimates are the same as they were before, or we've re-estimated? Like, could you add them all up and get to the same total?
We have not re-estimated.
So if you were to add all those things up, they should add to the amount that we had at the bottom of the list, and that would allow us to double check that we didn't miss anything.
Yes.
So I know for sure the nurses one is there. There may be others. That's just one that I remembered because it was such a surprise to me that was
I did
happening.
a quick check of that for some schools, and yes, it is the same.
Okay, all right. Anybody else with a first question? Well, you didn't get a question. You were just commenting. So.
It's actually another comment.
No, go.
Thank you both for the presentation. I wanted to just go back to Ms. Wilson's last comment or question asked, and that is, and I think we've talked about this before, just trying to have some sort of way of communicating on our website, our fabulous, wonderful new website, the status of work that's being done. Whether it's the 5-year plan or whether it's the renovations, but some way of just folks can go on and see what that progression looks like. So I'm just making that case again for that kind of communication, and I think it might prevent people from calling you up and emailing you constantly. So, but it's something I hope we can get to. Okay, thank you.
Does anyone have any questions about specific projects or anything in Ms. Wilson?
So for bidding group 3 Arbor Hill projects, I see the interior renovations, and I remember visiting them around the same time that their ask was sort of being honored, and they were talking about a science classroom and a room that's kind of like not really in use being commissioned and things. Are you able to break out more specifically those interior renovations, or do they comprise those items, or were they more so like a broader scope of interior renovations that you were referring to?
It's my understanding, but our architect is here, so he can correct me if I'm wrong, that the interior renovations that you see captured there for about $3.4 million is what would actually
construct that additional instructional space that we're adding to that building.
You're going to be an architect in your next career. There will be no next. The superintendent is saying over there, not on the microphone, no next career for you. I have a question, and I apologize. I'm having a little computer difficulty tonight, a self-inflicted wound on my computer having to do with not closing my water bottle successfully. Yes, so if you see a little fear on my face, it has nothing to do with any of you. It's about what's happening over here. But I cannot find it on here because I can't really see my screen well. Academy Park, is that in here? Can you just show me that?
I didn't list Academy Park.
I remember seeing you said Academy Park and which bidding group it is. It's in bidding group 4.
It should be 3.
But the scope's not listed. Okay, so that's why I was confused. And then I know that the superintendent has had conversations with Eileen about trying to at least consider whether an EPF grant for that work would be appropriate. And I'm just wondering if if those conversations have had so that we're meshing the timing on the bidding for Academy Park with any potential grant funding that we might be able to acquire for that historic building, and whether we care. Most grants are very careful about not funding something that would otherwise have been funded. So I just don't want to. I don't want to presuppose that.
So on one hand, Academy Park work is not funded because it is central office space, so we don't have access to building aid for that, which would allow us to seek other funding sources to support those expenses.
But I just want the timing of the bidding to not get in front of the timing of the grant application unless it's been decided by the grants office that we're not a high candidate for that grant. That's
So
my
we are looking at doing the grant, but we are very mindful not to have any conflicts. And so the work that would be done via the grant is separate from what would be a part of the district's work.
Okay. And then my only other question is about the mold and the work on the basements. Is that considered a capital project that would require a public vote?
So to clarify, the work in the foundation is actually a water mitigation. What we have is some significant water pooling in that area that we need to remedy in order to fully remediate our environmental concern. It would not necessarily be subject to a capital project as it is repair. It is also not something that we planned to do as a capital project. So at this point, it's planned to be operating as we would other repairs that come up during the year.
So that means it's A, doesn't require a public referendum, and B, is not aidable.
Not as it sits.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with any other questions? Oh, Ms. Wilson.
Just to piggyback on your question about the environmental concerns, as we know, they were unforeseen and possibly, I would say, just for lack of a better term, not preventable sometimes. However, with the 5-year plan, or at least in general, is our objective to look to some of these renovations to make, I want to say, almost preventable measures or institute things, or do they impact that in that way?
I don't know that they were intended to, but I think the additional climate management that you're going to have in some of these buildings would certainly play a role.
Yes.
We know that in some of our buildings where we did not have either power running through our summer months or failing climate management systems, that's where we were more susceptible. So it will definitely be something that supports our effort going forward. We're also making sure that we're working closely with our architect as we identify some exterior issues that might be contributing as well.
Thank you.
Board colleagues, any further questions on the 5-year plan before we move on to the next topic? Okay, making a slight segue to the North Albany Middle School design.
So thank you, Mr. Mara. Thank you so very much, Ms. Roaring. We appreciate everything that you're doing with keeping us abreast of the information from our 5-year plan. As we shift gears now, Mr. Peckham, thank you so very much for being here this evening. We are going to look at the design, if you will, for North Albany Middle School. We have worked very closely with Mr. Peckham with regard to what's going to happen with some of the existing spaces, as well as we have had input from the instruction side of the house. Ms. McKenna has worked with Ms. Julie Barber, as well as Mr. Burnsley. They've been in attendance with several meetings. We are still at the initial phases, just so that you know we're at the very beginning. And so we wanted to share an update with you at this time.
Thank you, Superintendent Adams. I'm going to not turn my back on the board intentionally, but it's easier for me to point things out if I'm facing the screen. So what we wanted to do was kind of highlight where we're at with the overall design as we've gotten into more detail since the referendum and talking with the current principals and the instructional staff. We've identified a couple things we want to change from the pre-referendum to make the school function better, and that's some of the things I'll start out with pointing out. So pre-referendum, we had the cafeteria underneath this classroom addition. This is a classroom addition that spans across from the two parts of the building. There's currently a bridge that comes across right here. We're going to take that bridge down and build 2 stories of classrooms, but starting at the 2nd floor. So you'll still be able to drive underneath there to get into this courtyard area. But with that, we had the cafeteria in this location. And once we got into more discussions with the school, we learned that that location is not ideal for essentially how the cafeteria needs to function during morning arrival of the students in the school, because a large number of the students go to the cafeteria for breakfast when they arrive. And with the drop-off point being behind the school, because the buses loop up North 2nd Street across and then back down North 3rd Street and drop off students in the back of the school, to get them from there to a cafeteria that's over here was going to be a lot of snaking through the school and trying to minimize the students throughout the school in the morning. And then with the purchase of the adjacent YMCA, we envision the YMCA parking lot being the location for parent drop-off. So again, your 2 main drop-off points would be remote from where that cafeteria was going to be. So we looked at different options and decided to relocate the cafeteria and expand it with the kitchen in the area that's currently the library for the school. And that will become the cafeteria. Students will be able to enter from the back from the bus drop-off and then go down a stair into the cafeteria area. Or if they get dropped off in the YMCA parking lot, they'll be able to go in the entrance there and down a corridor to get to the cafeteria, making it a central location. And then once classes are about to start, they can disperse from the cafeteria to their classrooms. So that's one of the major additions, the classroom addition, which we will look at in a little more detail. We have the auditorium addition at the back, which will provide for the 650-seat auditorium, and then the enhanced entrance between the auditorium and the existing building, which will be for both the auditorium and the student entrance in the morning. And then, because this was a small addition here at this end, which will be the larger music rehearsal room, because that was going to be part of where the library is now. So looking at a little more detail of the configuration of the plans, you'll see here's where the cafeteria is going to be. This area here is an addition for the cafeteria. Because of the height of the classroom addition and the height of the big Cisco trucks that deliver food, it's not possible to put this classroom addition up high enough to get trucks underneath there. So we've made it so trucks can stop out in front of the classroom addition, unload underneath the addition, then a corridor from along the existing building and get them back to the kitchen area here. So on the first floor of the existing building, we're going to have the Family and Consumer Science room on this end, another Family and Consumer Science room on the other end, and then the rest of this first floor area is the main office, the nurse's office, and the in-school suspension. That's a little bit different than what we had pre-ref. We had all the Family and Consumer Science function over in the property that's being acquired from the YMCA, but this is a Family and Consumer Science room now. For some economies, we said, let's leave it there. We won't have to put all kinds of different utilities in to be able to make that happen. So in the first floor of the YMCA area, we're putting the technology classrooms for the instructional technology. And then we have a health classroom and a computer classroom over here, plus music classrooms. And this is the large music rehearsal space for band and chorus, and the music classroom for more other music functions. We're going to be doing some renovations in the locker rooms to make them more conducive to middle school locker rooms versus public locker rooms. And the branch of the Albany Public Library remains in the building. We're enhancing that so that we can secure the entrance to that so that people can go directly into the library without having access to the school. On the second floor is where you'll see, this is the first part of the classroom addition we're building. There'll be 5 classrooms and some support space in that addition on each floor, creating 2 art classrooms here. There's 1 there now. And then we are converting the existing cafeteria into the library media center for this school. The back wing of the building was built in the 50s, will be largely renovated into middle school classrooms. There's, if anybody's not familiar with that school, there's the old coat room where the kids hang their coats and everything. We'll be taking those out to make the classrooms larger there for middle school 7th and 8th graders. And then the auditorium is going to seat 650 students in the auditorium, or 650 people. And just highlighting, we had some discussions at the last board meeting relative to the indoor track that will be available at this property, which is on the 2nd floor around the gymnasium. And then they had a fitness center there that we're going to kind of convert to a dance studio that they can also do some fitness activities in as part of the PE curriculum at that building. 3rd floor, again, the main thing is we have the 2nd floor of the classroom addition here with 5 more classrooms and support spaces. We're making a student services suite essentially spanning across the corridor here, where they'll have the guidance counselor, social workers, psychologists all in one services suite for those functions. 6th grade science classrooms and then other classrooms, and then again renovating the 1950s portion of the building for 7th and 8th grade classrooms. So these are just some axonometrics of where we're at with the design of the overall. This is the back side where the buses will drop off. So this is the auditorium addition. This will be the entrance where the students would come in or the public will come in for the auditorium. The other thing I didn't know to really point out when we were on the site plan, if people are coming to after hours events, they'll mainly going to be either in the gymnasium or the auditorium. So that other entrance from where the YMCA is now works very well for that. They'll either come in and be able to go directly in the gym, or they'll go up a flight of stairs or elevator and be right there at the auditorium, and the rest of the school can be closed off from that function. So this is the 2-story classroom. We call it the classroom bridge because it kind of bridges between the 1920s portion of the building and 1950s and puts classrooms on both sides of the corridor connector that's there now. That'll be demolished and this will be rebuilt. This also provides, right now there is no connection between the 2 halves of the building at the 3rd floor. So this provides that connection at the 3rd floor also. So if you have to go from one side to the other, you don't have to go down a floor across and back up again. This is the small music rehearsal space addition we're doing. And then this is a stair and connecting addition at the front of the auditorium to get between the classroom building over to the auditorium and also down to the 1st floor to the cafeteria at that location. And then this is kind of the last piece of the kitchen addition. This is the existing library for the school, which we are converting over to the cafeteria and expanding it in this area to provide the kitchen services necessary to provide the middle school menu for the school. Overall schedule for the project, we're going to be submitting to State Ed in April. Looking to bid and award the project pending SED approval in July and August so we can start construction this fall and have occupancy construction done by August of 2023 for full student occupancy for the September 2023 school year. And that is our update.
Thank you very much for that update. It's actually starting to look very recognizably like what it will be someday, which is always exciting. Board colleagues, as always, we're going to do one question at a time. Ms. Smith, did you want to go first or set us up as facilities chair? Anyone have a first question? Everybody's still like meditating and thinking. I'll ask the big question, which is, are there any significant changes in scope or program since we adopted this and put it in front of the voters?
I don't think so. I think, as I mentioned, the biggest change is the location of where the cafeteria is going to be, and that was really a reflection of the additional conversations we've had with the people that will really be running the building.
Anybody else have other questions or concerns that they would like to raise? Mr. Elminawi.
My one concern about the library is the access into the school. So how are you going to prevent people from entering? I mean, I see the entrance. I mean, there's just a little vestibule and one way into the library and one way into the school. So how are we going to prevent people from getting in that don't belong?
It's probably hard to see. There's a vestibule here where the outside door will be open, the interior vestibule doors will be locked, and then there'll be a door directly from that vestibule into the library. Another change we're making so that library patrons do not have to go into the school. Right now, anybody that needs to use the restrooms and they're at the library, they got to go in to use the restrooms. They're in the school. So as part of what we're doing is we're adding 2 single occupant restrooms directly accessible from the library. So essentially, as long as that interior vestibule door stays locked, anybody will have to be let into the school to be able to go from the library into the school. So that'll be a security monitor. Right, yeah, that's what we're adding those so that they have that capability.
Can I segue on the bathrooms? You know what I'm going to ask because I have asked about Albany High several times.
Yes, we have gender-neutral bathrooms planned.
Thank you, Mr. Peckham. Any other questions about North Albany before we move on? Okay, thank you very much for being here. We're excited to see this project coming to fruition. And that brings us now to a programmatic component, after lots of talk about facilities tonight, a discussion of the elementary acceleration and enrichment implementation.
So Dr. Cecily Wilson Turner will be here to talk to us about the work that she's been doing with the elementary acceleration and enrichment. And it is the second half of the policy. And so as we move forward, we wanted to keep you updated on the progress of what is it starting to, form, how is it starting to form, what might it start to look like. And this is just our initial presentation, just to help you see exactly how thoughts are shaping out. And then, of course, at the end, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions. So Dr. Wilson Turner, thank you.
Good evening, Board of Education. I am grateful for the opportunity to continue our conversation around our acceleration enrichment options, specifically at the elementary level. We began our original conversation around developing the policy. We talked very frankly about those procedures not being clearly articulated at the elementary level as they are at the secondary, and seeing it as an opportunity to refine our practice and build a clear pathway for our students to be ready to access the unique opportunities that are available for them as secondary students in the City School District of Albany. So I will open with a committee that I'm very proud of because despite what's listed as their current jobs, many of them have worn hats in the past that have been specifically around enrichment opportunities for students or acceleration opportunities for students. We have our former 21st Century After School Director in Emma Stickman, who is currently an assistant principal. Dawn Castle, who is a literacy coach, has a long history in our district in our acceleration enrichment opportunities. She was one of the co-facilitators of the Scholars Program, which was an after-school enrichment program that was offered in the district, along with Sarah McGraw. And I was really excited for the role that Nicole Lindeman stepped up and played in this committee, and seeing an opportunity with the librarians to be a space where we began some enrichment for all of our students. So it was a very It's a great committee with very strong opinions and ideas about what needed to occur, some very heated discussions, very passionate discussions about what we want this to be and who we want it to be able to serve and what we want the outcomes to be. So believe it or not, we probably spent a full meeting discussing our purpose as a committee so that we were clear on what we were all working towards. And really what we came to is that our purpose was to build that pathway to make sure that our elementary students were prepared for that secondary experience, but also to do it in a way where students who are typically flying below the radar but have talents and abilities and interests that we fail to capture because we're so busy trying to make sure that the students who are really struggling are getting what they need, and we're making sure that the students who are really high performers are getting what they need, that those students kind of get lost in the mix, really came to the forefront when we talked about enrichment. And so we were very clear in trying to develop our purpose of incorporating those aspects. So in our meetings over the last 3 months, we focused on 3 areas. We looked at whole school enrichment because we really felt important that every child in the elementary setting deserves an opportunity to go deeper into the learning that they're having in the classroom and trying to find some unique spaces within the school day for that to happen, and not relying on after-school activities be the sole place where students receive enrichment, because some of our students will never participate in those after-school opportunities. We then went into a lengthy work session, or several work sessions, on what an off-site enrichment program would look like for that segment of the students that we talked about that typically fly under the radar, which we referred to as our academic middle, based on the data that we would like to pull and identify as the selection process for those students. And then we've probably honestly spent the least amount of time on our acceleration procedures because we've just been so deep in the enrichment piece of it. But our initial conversations around that have also been around some of the challenges that we anticipate and how do we do that in the way that is best for students and their families as we go through that process. So we started with our draft whole school enrichment project, and as I said, Nicole Lindemann came to the table early, and then APSTA was gracious enough to provide us with a librarian who also had interest in enrichment work in the library, and we began a conversation about how we use our special areas to integrate instruction in a thoughtful and more in-depth way that can often occur in the classroom. And the librarians have an opportunity, as they have been looking at their curriculum and standards, to kind of reshape and refine the work that they do in the library to better support what students are learning at each grade level throughout the course of the school year. And so they're very excited, and as I mentioned, they have already begun the work of looking at their curriculum and looking at how to rewrite it to integrate those key concepts that students will learn and use the library as an opportunity to go deeper in those opportunities. And that would be something that would be available to students through their library classroom. But we do recognize that library is scheduled differently in the intermediate grades, and so it's something that we'll consider and continue to think about so that we continue to develop that exposure for students. So once we got excited about that, we said we don't have to stop at library. And so you all have had the opportunity to hear from our very passionate and energetic Ashley Chappell, instructional supervisor for PE. So I've already tapped Ashley and said, get ready because PE is next, and some of the things that she's done with technology integration will lend itself well to trying to make the connection between how physical education has played its role in some of the content and concepts that students are developing. And so it's just a natural opportunity to develop some of our encore classrooms to be an opportunity to go deeper with our students. And I haven't warned Kate yet that we're next looking at art and music, but you all know the instant connections that occur in art and music, particularly with social studies and science, and ways that we can go deeper with students in that vein. So we're very excited about our whole school enrichment draft plan at this point in time. So our off-site enrichment program went through many, many, many variations before we finally arrived at what we're considering at this point in time. We talked about whether we could use a teacher to travel around the district and provide enrichment to grades 3 and 4 so that the students could stay put and we wouldn't have this significant impact on the day. But as we fleshed out what we wanted the experience to be, we don't want a pardon the phrase, an art on the cart situation where someone's packing up, this experience and trying to carry their show on the road. We really want a space where students come to and know that it's a unique and special experience where they're going to learn and approach learning in a very different way, and in a way that allows the teacher to prepare for the type of learning that we want to occur, which is going to be very project-based and around conceptual development. So we designed our program to target students hopefully in grades 4 and 5. The first year we'll probably start with just grade 4 so that we would have an opportunity to build out the program. We want to focus on those students who perform at the 60th to 80th percentile. Again, targeting that academic middle, because those are the students that we feel if we strengthen their critical thinking skills, their collaboration skills, and their confidence in their ability to do high-level work, that they will then take advantage of those secondary opportunities. So then we decided that we do want it to be a full-day enrichment opportunity, which means students would miss their classroom instruction 1 day a week to travel off-site, either to one of our schools that has a classroom space, or we've even talked about partnering with some of our colleges and universities to bring them off-site there for this experience. And so they would be required to make up work that was missed while they were attending the program, but our intent in developing the curriculum would be that the curriculum is aligned to key concepts for their grade level that they are going deeper into that would enhance their learning over time. And so that would be something for consideration. We, again, really want it to be a project-based experience that is about conceptual development and not the traditional experience that they're receiving in school, in addition to allowing them to go deeper. And so when you talk, we've talked a little bit, not very deeply, but about, you know, would there be a report card grade? Are there going to be assessments? Are there going to be, you know, how are we going to measure this? And really what we want it to be a measure of is the child's ability to stand up and demonstrate what they've learned, maybe in a presentation style, maybe in the project itself, but something that is a very different learning experience that we're looking to plan more deeply. And yep, I can move on. So the model that we arrived at would be one teacher who was at one location, and we would have a universal start and stop time, because you know we have early start schools and late start schools, so that everyone got the same time frame around experience. The team also thought it was very important that we didn't just have one school come with their 3rd graders and another school come with their 4th graders, but to really mix the students up across the district at this point in time, because these are the kids they're going to see as they begin to move through those secondary pathways. And so we, with that start and end time, if we were to do just 4th grade for this year or for the coming year, we would be able to enroll 120 students in the program, and each school would have their day that their 4th grade team came. If we wanted to take on 4th and 5th grade in the first year, it would be an every other week experience instead of an every week experience. And we could also use an every week experience to expand the number of students that we offer it to. But we did feel that that was the best model, allowing the students to come off-site to a prepared situation, to go all the way through a project, through its finality for that day, and then return to their school site. So they would have a little time either before or after the program, and they would be transported from their school site to the program site and then back to the school site and go home from there, so they wouldn't travel directly there. So we then talked about, and this is probably one of our more challenging conversations, is how do we distribute seats to this program? And we want to be able to serve every child who's eligible, but we had that conversation very early in the policy committee, or policy development. So then what happens when we have more kids who are ready for this? And I'm ready for that day where we have more kids who are sitting in this percentile range and we have to figure out a different construct. But based on the preliminary look at the data, we're comfortable with assigning seats based on school size. And in looking at just a few data points around the 60th to 80th percentile, we found that overall, on average, buildings would be excluding 3 to 4 students by virtue of the number of seats they were offered. So if you were a small school, we'd be given 8 seats. If you were a mid-sized school, 10 seats, and then a large school, 14 seats. And then that helps with how we pair the schools together as well. We said, as indicated in the policy, if we had more seats than more students who were eligible than seats available, it would be a lottery process. We then had a lengthy conversation, which I did not place up here, about students continuing in the program for the next year. And we weighed the pros and cons of having as many children as possible have that experience versus having children have an extended experience that truly prepares them for what want them to do. And the team erred on the thought that we want it to be an extended experience for these students. And there may be situations where seats open up for a variety of reasons that would allow us to continue to fill with those seats. But on average, like I said, it would be 3 to 4 students we'd be excluding. And looking at multiple measures, it could end up being less than that. And looking at students' preparedness to go off campus for a day every week, it could be less than that. Parents' comfort level with that, it could be less than that. But I do imagine as we continue to increase our student performance, that number is going to grow. And so our commitment to growing the program will have to be something that we reflect on. So in identifying students, we talked about the importance of using multiple data points. It's not enough for students to be academically strong, but we want them to be social emotionally ready for that work as well, and they have to be a student who's appropriately motivated, or who the school feels like would be motivated in a particular setting that is challenging for them. So we would look at multiple facets to make that decision. We talked about the importance of notifying families when that data review is occurring, and then notifying families when children have been selected. And we really wanted to use an opt-out model, so that we're not waiting for parents to confirm that they want their child to attend, but instead saying, no, my child cannot participate, to ensure that we can have the largest participation possible. Uh-oh, did I go back? Where am I? Oh, back. Okay. So that was the length of our conversation around our off-site enrichment program, and how we wanted to do the selection, notification, what we want that program to look like, and what the staffing would be. We also did some budgetary considerations, which are listed a little later in the presentation. So our acceleration process, we've talked about the 2 forms of acceleration that we would utilize basically throughout our whole system per our policy, and that is whole grade acceleration. That's when a child simply skips to the next grade because they're so advanced in multiple subject areas, or content acceleration, where I'm exceptionally talented in ELA, or I'm exceptionally talented in math, and therefore I need to advance in some way to address those content areas. The team is fairly comfortable with our process for whole grade acceleration. We just, the biggest refinement we want to do there is around being proactive in finding students who would benefit from whole grade acceleration, as opposed to relying on a parent to identify that, or a teacher who's paying attention to kind of realize that, but really to have a team approach to looking at data and saying, these students' metrics really bear out them having a different experience, and maybe whole grade acceleration would be appropriate for them. And so we talked about using students who are performing at or above the 95th percentile, and in multiple measures to make that determination, again, as well as social emotional learning, their motivation to work at a higher level being key components of that work, of that selection process. And then really working with the parent around the decision to make sure the parent is in agreement with that being the process that they would like for their child, or if they would prefer their child to be remain in the grade they are and be challenged within there. And to provide them with a data report so they understand how the decision is being made about their child, and how their child should be progressing as it goes on. What's in the policy, and I didn't list here, is the importance of, it is here, the importance of monitoring the student once we accelerate them, right? So it's one thing to move them, it's another thing to say, okay, you're here and how are you doing, and was this the right decision to move you, and is there an adjustment that needs to be made? So the monitoring is a key piece of that. So content acceleration presents a different challenge. It is more easily done while you're in K1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then it becomes challenging when you hit 5th grade, and the 5th grade teacher's like, I can't, manage the 6th grade math piece of this, or I don't have a 6th grade to send you to. Are we putting you on a bus to go somewhere? You're the only child in the building who has that need. And so we really have not finished this conversation in any way, shape, or form. But I did just list out, as requested, some of the things that we've considered. We find that with ELA, it's a little bit easier to do that challenge, because you're really just challenging within standards that are spiraling up in complexity of text versus complexity of the concept, as in the math. And math, you're really shifting in concept and people's expertise to teach at a high level in those particular concepts. So I think the team has a little bit more comfort in the whole grade or content acceleration in ELA, knowing that the 5th grade teacher could probably pull off through, in their response to instruction time, the challenge that is needed in providing students with that appropriate level text and those appropriate level experiences. With math is where we have our concern. And it's typically where students really have an exceptional talent is in math. That makes it very difficult to make a decision around. So we talked about the idea of students traveling to the middle school and having to have a middle school schedule that accommodates, first period or last period math, and that being like, okay, that could be a challenge. And I lived that life when I was a high school principal, and I had middle schoolers coming up, and we had to build a schedule for that. So again, not the team's preference, but one of the discussions we had. We talked about a teacher traveling for a small number of students, but that would be to multiple buildings, right? Because these students don't necessarily concentrate in one building. And so then what kind of schedule is that for a teacher for one student to go to one building for a child? But in talking a little closer with Sarah McGraw, what her thought was is if we can, which she already has, because that's just how Sarah's mind works, identify curriculum resources that can be used explicitly with that student as opposed to a teacher being responsible for trying to come up with the standards-based instruction that they do at middle level, that it should be something that we can accommodate better in our response to instruction time. But we're still not completely sold on what our model would be. And so I'm very interested if the board has, thoughts on how that would, how families feel about that movement through through the middle level. Like I said, I know what the experience was like for students, being a 7th or 8th grader coming up to high school to take, math. It's a very different and sometimes daunting experience. So a lot more conversation and work to be done about how we do that acceleration for specific content. In my mind, we've talked about, is our only option to do whole grade acceleration in those cases, and so also something else to consider. So our budget impact is in 2 areas, and it's around whole school enrichment. So we would need some time for curriculum writing if we're going to have library revamp their curriculum, and then PE revamp their curriculum, and then art and music revamp their curriculum to incorporate those enrichment pieces. And then just we would want to be able to provide additional supplies for any enhancements they want to provide to that curriculum. So that we're predicting would be around $25,000 for each content area as we go through that work. The offsite enrichment is really about our investment in a position, is going to be significant in the sustainability of this program. And so you'll see on the next step slides is that I'm working with Eileen around grants to support our enrichment programming, but the one thing I do not want to place in a grant is the position. Because if the grant goes away, the position goes away, our process goes away. And so I feel like that is the one investment that would need to come out of the general fund for certain, but we would work, as I said, with Eileen to use a grant to provide the other funding sources. So we've mapped out transportation costs. So we were developing our budget in transition of our transportation director. So Denise and I had a quick conversation about whether or not, if it was a standing program, it could be incorporated ahead of time into a run and cut costs significantly. So she could not give me a number. But if we did it just based on the cost from a bus from school A to school B, it would be about $32,000 for transportation costs. If we build it in as a run, it's something that's incorporated into our overall package. It would come out much lower. Supplies and materials, we would have some one-time costs like Chromebook carts and Elmos, some hard technology, and then some consumable supplies that we would need to buy each year. Again, curriculum writing so that we could develop the program the way that we want it to look. And of course, we want our children to have some field trip experiences tied to the deep content work that they'll be doing. And so all totaled, it would be around $170,000. And again, with the primary cost for the general fund, hopefully being just the full-time equivalent position. So the committee will come back together several more times to continue to discuss the program metrics, our curriculum writing plan, and to finish developing our acceleration procedures, amongst other things. And like I said, we're working with our grants office to apply for some grants, which are specifically designed for enrichment and acceleration programming. So we are hopeful in that vein. And we will look at our winter NWA data, because the data that we had to use to project was actually our spring NWA data to keep seeing if our projections around numbers and how we meet that programming need will still be accurate, or if we have to make an adjustment. And that concludes the presentation.
So thank you very much for this presentation. I mean, this is really one of the most novel things that we've done recently, to add a fully new concept of how we help our students. So it's really an exciting time, I think, for the district. So I appreciate the work of you and the committee as we're trying to figure out the best way to do this for us, which is not always the best for everybody else. So board colleagues, one question at a time. Ms. Smith is jumping out of her seat, so we're going to let her go first.
Sorry. Well, I must say that as I was reading this in my home, I was screaming and yelling and jumping up and down, and the whole household was like thinking something was on fire or something. And it was just me. But I just wanted to commend you and the committee and staff on this. I think this is just, as Ann said, this is just absolutely I don't know, just fantastic, and it goes to my way of thinking, and I'm sure yours, the heart of this instructional framework. And also, I do want to encourage, and I know you're working on this, that content acceleration piece, because what I see here is that there's almost a little bit of something for every youngster to motivate them. I also can see this, I hope, being an exciting opportunity for teachers to also do something a little different and challenging and, outside of what they've perhaps have normally done. And so I just think that this is just right on. So I did want to, I had a question that I did put in the tool, but I think you've answered that, so I'm not going to ask it. But I did have a question about the coordination of all of this, because as I'm jumping up and down and screaming, I'm like going, whoa, I'm just slightly overwhelmed, and I'm trying to see how this is all going to work and come together. Where does this initiative rest? And I was surprised that I didn't see one or two more positions here, but if you could just generally talk about that.
I think from a curriculum standpoint, the instructional supervisors who sit at the table would really take ownership of making sure the curriculum was in alignment with what the core concept were for the year. So that's why, Lynn is there, Sarah's there, and then Nicole Lindemann for libraries. And then when we get to the PE piece, Ashley. But to be quite frank, this has been my baby since I stepped into the position and had the opportunity to become the assistant superintendent for elementary, because I'm where I am because of something like this. And so it right now would sit with me. It may not always get to sit with me, but in its infancy, I would like to be able to take lead and help coordinate that, and hopefully with a very strong teacher in that position, work closely with the instructional supervisors and that teachers to make sure the program is to where it is. Karen may fight me for it, later, because really it's probably more in her wheelhouse, but really near and dear to the work of elementary schools, and I think our ultimate outcomes. And so I think for right now, the oversight would sit there.
Great, thank you. And I just want to say that from my point of view, I want to just encourage all of this being able to happen. So I'm going to let you go and think about what all needs to happen, what the pieces are, how you do it. I wish I had something more to offer. You asked the board a question around the content piece. I don't even know if I can step into that. I don't want to. You probably don't want me to. But I just think you're really right on to something here, and you have got certainly my full support and intention to make sure we find the money in the budget to make this happen. Thank you.
Dr. Jator.
First of all, kudos to you and your team. I mean, it's a great policy, and here's a great thoughtful process how it'll be implemented. I'm just so excited about this. It truly is going to make a big difference. I mean, you have to raise the bar, raise the standard, and push those kids, because if you tell them that, well, you got to jump this high, they will do it. They will definitely do it. With regards to the experiences, and having had a child who was in the middle school, more on the secondary enrichment, traveling from the middle school to the high school for math, it was an interesting experience. I mean, there's both pros and cons to it. He loves math, so that was great. As a parent, your kid in the high school, how will that experience be? But depending on the personality, I mean, he was fine, so it was really great. And when he did go to the high school where he's now, I mean, he already had made friends and connections, so that was great. On the other hand, when you think, what would have happened had he been a fifth grader going into the sixth grade in a middle school? That would have been a bit more trickier, I think, because it's an interesting time in kids' lives when with hormones and tweens and but that shouldn't kind of stop us from doing it. I was thinking, let's think outside the box and try and see if we can use technology maybe. What if we could, Zoom or Skype or use one of those things where the middle school teacher connects to all the different schools through technologies. The kids are still in their own environment, but are exposed to the content through, I'm sure Mr. Baker can make it happen.
Dr. Wilson-Turner, did you want to comment on that, or should we move on?
It's actually interesting because, again, it's a very similar conversation to what we had at the high school when we reached that level with our high school students. And we're like, we don't have any more math to give you because you are doing junior year math in college. We did talk about some virtual opportunities for them. And again, thinking about the development, where our fifth graders are or sixth graders are developmentally and their ability to manage doing online instruction, it is something we haven't had discussion around and something we can consider, what the pros and cons of that would be.
I mean, this would be online, but it would still be in the presence of a live person, right? So it's still...
Ms. Wilson.
Thank you again for your presentation, and I just again want to be complimentary because I did find it to be visionary, especially the emphasis on accessibility, and almost it reminds me of that phrase "ask and you shall receive," because I feel like for the past 2 years we have been asking about pushing rigor down, and I feel like this really delivers a framework for that, and we appreciate that, of course. I also feel like it's a timely incorporation of library media specialists. They are a hot topic in the media, and there's a lot of discussion and debate around them being like these non-teacher intermediaries as far as how the students see them, but also between technology and maker spaces and things of that nature. So I want to be complimentary for that also. And one more thought, and I think I lost it because I was blown away by Shridar's idea. So I'll just marinate some more until it comes back.
Ms. Gricci.
Thank you so much. This is a really intriguing and thought-provoking program. And honestly, the more I read it and the more you talked about it, the more I liked what you're trying to do, because I think I was coming at a lot of this from the perspective of, what do we do for the child who's not challenged in his current classroom and needs a challenge, rather than what do we do from a whole group perspective to get as many kids as possible ready for these advanced courses, including kids that might be just coasting in their regular classrooms going, I'm doing okay. I don't have to push myself, getting good grades, as you said, staying below the radar. So that was really exciting. I too, like Dr. Chator, was thinking of something like a flipped classroom model or something for the advanced math students, or maybe even perhaps there could be some combination where they do some work electronically, but maybe they get on a bus once a week, all the fifth graders, for some sort of intensive math workshop with other fifth graders from the district, which might be less, a little less, not traumatic, but a little less inappropriate a setting for them than maybe the middle school. So really excited about this, and I do encourage you to work more on that subject level acceleration to make sure that our kids are not, that they're getting the challenges they need without unnecessary challenges to their schedule or upheaval. Thanks.
Mr. Elmanyawi.
Thank you for the presentation. I think it's a very smart path. I, as a parent, have been thinking about this this issue of, okay, my son is, very good at X, Y, and Z. Is he going to get pushed enough? And this is a very good model. I actually also like the budget. It seems pretty reasonable for what you're setting out to do. That said, I do wonder about the off-site enrichment selection process. So you said that there's going to be something like 4 students per school that would not get selected. I'm just kind of wondering if it might be wise to incorporate some kind of application. So, are they interested? Yes. If you have more people that are interested than you have spots for, maybe there's some kind of application or some kind of writing or some kind of process that you would be able to fall back on when you're deciding who gets to go in.
So my only concern with an application process is sometimes the students that we're trying to pull into this are students we're trying to pull into this. And so we have some students who are trying to pull in, their parents will be like, you're filling out that application. And some students who may not have that advocacy, they may have it in a teacher or someone else in the building who sees in them something they don't see in themselves. But it's something I will bring back to the team for consideration. That's the only hesitancy there. We thought by doing it with the data points and then a lottery system and then conversations with parents around whether this is appropriate with your child, that we would guarantee getting at all the students that we want to get at and not leave it to chance of a child applying in the process. And so we want to be, the term that the instructional supervisors have brought to the forefront is, we want to be using a child find process. We want to find the children who need these programs and make sure that they get to them.
Yeah, I would actually I'm going to segue into that. I would actually probably be opposed to any kind of an application process on those grounds. Consistent with our intentions around having a lottery for selection, my goal is to make sure that children who don't have parent advocates get selected, and I think the children who would be most likely to submit an application would be the children who would most likely to have parents behind them pushing and encouraging, especially at the elementary level. This is the same thing we heard from the music teachers, which is starting kids at elementary music at 3rd grade, which is wonderful, and we're also proud of it, and we love it for our district, and it really challenges our kids, but it does privilege the kids who already have privilege because they're the ones who've got parents at home who say, practice, 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 and they have a stable home life to do that. So it's that same mindset of like, let's figure out ways to get kids who don't otherwise have privilege. Ms. Krejci, did you have something to add?
Can I count this as my second comment now? I just wanted to say, I think actually maybe the single strongest thing about this whole plan for the enrichment is that it's an opt-out rather than an opt-in. I think that's brilliant because it's about bringing in the kids whose parents are not as involved, perhaps not as engaged, maybe because they're working, maybe because they're not speaking English for whatever reason, bringing in those kids and making it, unless your parents have objections to you doing it, you're doing it. I love that. I think it's the best way to make this happen for the kids we're trying to reach.
So I'm just going to, that was actually, my comment was on Mr. O'Malley's comment. I just have a question that I want to ask. This one is just, I really just need to ask this. I have another one too, but if it's an opt-out program and we're transporting kids, how does that tie into our field trip process where it's really, field trips are an opt-in process and we require parent signature on that? Is that obligatory? Could we make our field trips an opt-out process the way we're intending to make this transportation an opt-in, an opt-out process so that we could get rid of this hassle for teachers of requiring signatures? Now, the money thing, I understand. Sometimes there's a small fee for field trips, but the permission slip, do we need a permission slip?
So I'm going to turn my back for a second and look at Karen because I feel like with the middle school visits, did we do an opt-in field petition form? Because it was a district-sponsored activity and it was happening within district.
Yes, that's exactly right. I don't know, Lori and I were just sort of having a side discussion about anything that was external, that may be a bit of more, we'd have to check about the legal.
Mr. Alloy, homework for you.
I think I was a part of those conversations.
You were when we made a
also.
decision about the middle school visits, yeah.
Yeah, anything that's outside of their regular curriculum or routine, where you're moving them outside of the district where a parent wouldn't expect for them to be ordinarily going as part of the regular day, I would probably have them still being opting in as opposed to opting out.
But that could be signed once at the beginning of the year.
It's not something they would have to sign every week,
Right.
even if they were
Correct.
going on a field trip one time.
Right, it should be all encompassing.
Even would and I know I'm getting a little bit into the weeds, but I'm just trying to understand how this
Mhm.
integrate with the field trips. Would the field trips have to be specified at the beginning of the year? You're going, or if we wanted to have a single solitary field trip?
I think we've done single solitary field trips when we've had like repeat field trips for a particular group of students.
So we say we're going to go on a field trip every Friday, and we don't necessarily know where yet, but we're going someplace.
Correct.
Okay, I love that. I mean, I really want this to be as fluid and as much as we can legally make it possible, given our limitations legally, to make it as, because again, the opt-in, this is the application problem, right? If the kid can't get the parent to sign, if the parent, it's not that the parent is intentionally withholding their signature, they're just not, something's going on in their life that they don't sign.
So,
Mrs.
Madam
Adams.
President, members of the board, one of the things that we could do in our entire registration process is what you're saying at the beginning of the year. They, parents would sign a field trip saying that they are granting permission for their child to go on field trips. And then, as customarily in the course of the school year, you're made aware of when that field trip is and what it is about. Then it, in essence, becomes an opt-out because you've already granted permission for school district field trips, your child can go. But now, I as a parent, if I don't want my child to go on this particular one and I see the letter that comes out and tells me, then I can at least notify the school to say, no, my child is not eligible to go because I said so as the parent, but otherwise the child would be able to go.
So I hear what you're saying. I want to extend that thinking to the entire school district. I know in some years, I don't remember seeing one this year, we used to get a walking field trip form. I approved my child to go on any walking field trips. Wherever you take my kid is cool. So I'm just wondering, as this conversation is going out, could this be part of our first day of school for every child in the district? You have my permission to take my kid on field trips, and then we get rid of this whole administrative stuff.
I would align it with like we do our media releases. We get those done right away. We have a list of students who
who are
cannot have
excluded
their
from field trips for
pictures
whatever their
taken.
parents are.
And so that could be done, absolutely.
Streamline the whole thing and make field trips easier for teachers and less burdensome. I'm sorry that I segued onto field trips, but this was like, how does this all fit together? Okay, now let's see. I think everybody's had one. Ellen has had two. Oh, so everybody's had one, and Ellen said two. Who would like to have the first next? Do you want to be next?
I haven't had one.
You didn't have one?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wrote your
But
initial down and I passed you. I'm so sorry.
Okay, no, it's well, one, I want to agree with what everyone said, the compliments, and but what really stuck out for me is when you shared that we meaning as a district want to improve the process of identifying those children that could benefit from either content or content acceleration, rather than having the parents come to us, because I think, that's how that's very important, so I really appreciate that and support this, so thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Chittor?
So I too love the opt-out over the opt-in. So, going back to what Hassan's question was, you're going to have about 3 or 4 kids per school who are not going to be able to make it just because of the capacity issue. But I think that, so if you, over all the schools, you're talking about 50 students, right? What I would like to see is that those students get notified anyways, and because being recognized that, hey, you could be something who could make a big difference in their lives. So have some mechanism, so even if they didn't make the lottery, they're still getting recognized for their ability to have been selected.
And I think the policy requires that, right? Yes. Let's see, who would like Ms. Smith?
Okay, excuse me. Just a little slight kind of departure, sort of. And I know Mr. Baker has spoken about this, but at some point, but I think I understand that the library media folks are working on a curriculum, right? But I also am very interested in the work that group does currently with its interaction with our youngsters. And I guess what I'm wondering is, and maybe down the road there'll be a presentation where it's sort of just the media library people. But I guess I'm just raising it in that regardless of this work, I have seen so many more elementary schools in particular, where those youngsters that they have their carts, their computers, they're working on writing assignments and projects, they're communicating, emailing directly to their librarian media person about a topic or about how to set up a reference, just these kinds of things. And because I think that is a group of professionals sometimes that does not, it's easy to see them more as a sort of a resource rather than really solid part of this whole instructional framework, that they're just as important as that classroom teacher. And so I guess I'm just making a general comment about wanting to know more about the work, the role of the library media folks at some point. I'm not rushing that, and I know there's a curriculum being developed, but it's just another group of professionals that I would like to bring them forth to have a better understanding of what occurs. And Ms. Bechtel?
The librarians or the K-12 library curriculum is under review this year as well. So Nicole is actually engaging in that process, and because of this program that Cecily has created with the team, this is really sort of grounding that work. So when we come back in June for our annual curriculum presentations about the reviews that took place this year, you will hear from Nicole.
Ms. Wilson.
Thank you, and I was able to jog my memory. The other part of the statement I want to talk about is that I often see, and again in the media, people talking about schools not preparing students for the 21st century, et cetera, and I think this really aligns perfectly with that work also. And just a question, I appreciate you speaking to the underrepresented groups that could sort of not be incorporated, and I was curious if you considered, or if it would be prudent, or if you thought about it and maybe thought against it, whether it would be good to have community input on the committee, as well as that being people from underrepresented communities as well.
So I think we took a very technical stance, let's say, on the work that we were doing and just trying to flesh out the structures and ins and outs of this that we thought was important for us to do internally. But I don't think we're opposed to, bringing together some, a group of parents or community members to kind of talk about what their concerns or challenges may be with a program that particularly that pulls children off site for an experience during the school day, and to, around the considerations around the content acceleration. I think there's an opportunity, but I think what we would want to have is a very refined product that we bring them to versus something that we are struggling and working our way through to develop the structure of.
Ms. Mann.
So in terms of the offsite program, is there a scenario where you could have, small schools, 8 seats per grade level, where you could have one small school, you have 2 small schools, and one small school is thinking, you know what, I'd like to give 2 of my seats to this small school. I don't want to name schools, but is there flexibility in that?
There is, and so when we did the preliminary numbers, we saw some, depending by grade level, so we looked at both, we looked at 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade where we were trying to determine who we pull for the program. And different grade levels, different years have different students who are in this percentile range. And so some schools had a very large number in 4th grade, but only, 6 in 3rd grade who would have been eligible for this program. And so I think there is an opportunity to pair the schools in a way that would allow that school that had 2 more kids that could have actually attended if they had those seats, because this school doesn't need them, to offset that balance. So I think when we have, in our draft plan that, we generally want 8 kids from this size school, 10 from this size school, we want to also ensure that we have the opportunity to see as many students as possible. So what we wouldn't have happen is have a day where only 22 students are going and leaving those 2 seats open. We would want to pair the schools in a way so that we got to that 24 seats.
Mr. Almanawi.
I have a lot to say about this, and it's all good generally. My question is, what made you guys put art on the later end of the spectrum?
So I look for natural opportunities, and like I said, library presented a natural opportunity because they were doing this work, and they actually came to the table very early on when we were thinking about, the library, bless you, the library media specialist shortage that we have in the district, and if we wanted to hire differently for library, do we want to make those enrichment teachers? So they really came to the forefront out of multiple opportunities. And PE, like I said, it's really about the leadership that sits in PE right now and the passion that she brings to some of the work and some of the changes she's trying to make right now. So I don't want her to get too far down the road without us. With some of the ideas that we have. And I think art and music are, like I said, really natural opportunities that do some of these pieces already, but not in a systematic way across the entire system. So they're pulling in some of the artwork that may be relevant to a time period that students are studying already. And so I think we won't have as much work to do when we get to those as we are in these two departments that are kind of redeveloping their work right now. So it was just like a natural opportunity to start with those so that we could build it while they were building other things.
Okay.
So my second question is, the policy focuses on children who achieve mastery quickly, right? Like that's how we defined who we were trying to target with this. And you've done an amazing job on the 60 to 80. And actually, I love this program. I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it beyond love, because I think it really targets those kids who are going, it's the same way we define summer school, right? It's the same kind of concept of like, we got to hit these kids while they're young, while they have aptitude, and grab the ones who have aptitude and help them get where they need to go. It's awesome. I love it. 80 to 95 does not appear to be really addressed by this process. And that is who the policy talks about, is the people who achieve mastery very quickly, which is sort of the 80 to 95. So I'm struggling a little bit. Again, I love this program. I'm not fully feeling that it's consistent with the policy language. So what's your thinking about that?
So that's part of where the team got stuck as well. We originally started with a range of 70 to the 95th percentile to really capture that. But when we began to talk about the heart of what we were attempting to accomplish is how we got to the 60 to 80th percentile. And that's really what brought us back out to the whole school enrichment component of it, to make sure all students got everything. We felt that the students who are in that 80 to 95th percentile range are typically the students who get pulled as a group because there's 5 or 6 of them anyway to get a different level of instruction, versus your outlier at the 95th percentile where no one is really in their range. And so we felt that we could capture them in a couple of different ways, or we would be coming to the budget table asking for maybe 4 positions so that we could have a program that addresses 60 to 80 and then a program that addresses 80 to 95. When we looked at the 70 to 95th percentile range with one of our data points, we just saw just looking at reading, we saw the reading levels of those students be such a huge range that we wondered if we would put those students who were at the lower end of the percentile range at a disadvantage to be in a room with a child who is at the 94th percentile, and discourage what we were actually trying to encourage in their ability to grow in their learning process. So we struggled with that, but really decided in the end to concentrate our efforts on designing something for the students that we felt weren't being noticed at this point in time and supported as richly as they could be. But absolutely, given unlimited funding opportunities, could go back and design something specifically for that next range of students, or consider designing something that incorporates all of them, but it would increase the number of students that we're trying to tackle. So you're accurate in your assessment that we really did focus on just under that population described. But I think the way the policy is written, it talks about addressing the needs of all students as they are progressing at the rate they need to progress, and we feel that the policy covers these students as well.
Okay, I'll be interested to hear what else we're doing for the 80 to 95s. I mean, I know that there's some things happening in some schools. I don't know how systematic it is, because I do think that's a population that is underserved. Ms. Krejci, did you have something?
You know, you really said what I wanted to say, and probably better than I could have said it.
And I got a compliment out of the deal, too. That was awesome. Mr. El-Minyawi.
Exactly what Ellen said, but I also had this thought that I didn't want to bring up until you brought that up. The idea that maybe you sprinkle 1 or 2 of those students from the 80 to 95% into this program could, and this is obviously your field, but could help bring up those students as well, maybe, from the 60 to 80?
I would say in an extended experience, probably, but when they're only coming out 1 day a week, what tends to happen in their classroom already is those kids in the 80 to 90 or 80 to 100 percentile are answering all the questions. Their hands are constantly up, and those kids are just kind of, I don't have to answer. I'm not quite sure if my answer is right, and they probably are right. And so if it was a more extensive experience, if it was something we were designing to occur every single day, then yes, because that's how we design our classrooms right now. We don't, separate out our highest performers from our lowest performers. We put them all together so that they have a more enriched experience. But I think in this particular setting, when we're trying to draw out those students, we don't want to create a situation where we're like, well, I'm just back in class. I'm going to let, Kawita answer all the questions because she always does anyway.
She definitely did. We know that about her. Ms. Krejci.
Again, because the first thing I thought when I thought of this program is, but what about the 80th to 95th kids? What about them? But then I realized one sort of benefit of this program is that the class sizes in this enriched program are about the same as your regular class, 24 or so kids. But if you're taking 2 or 3, maybe up to 3 or 4 kids from each class back in the regular elementary school, that teachers got 1 day a week where they can do stuff that maybe they couldn't do with 25 kids that's easier to do with 20. So that there could offer some room for either differentiation or kind of classroom by classroom enrichment, or at least a little more personal attention for the other kids on that day.
And if I could, to be honest, what we thought about is in thinking about the purpose that we set for ourselves as a committee, our students in the 80 to 95th percentile will show up at Hackett and will show up at Myers and will sit in honors classes and will be on that pathway. Right. And what we were really thinking about was garnering a larger group of students that we are building to be in the honors pathway here, and then the AP and IB pathway when they get to high school, who traditionally would not even look at that or consider it. And so when we made the decision to drop down into that academic middle, it was very intentional for that group of students.
So, Madam President, if I may. So thank you very much. And Dr. Wilson-Turner, I appreciate all the work that you've done, especially with working through the policy and helping to bring this into light so that we can actualize this. And as we said at the beginning, we're at the very beginning stages, and so all of your input is absolutely appreciated. I have to do the caveat of, if we go back and look at our vision and our mission of meeting the needs of all of our students, when we talk about what we already have in place that our policy aligns with, I think we do need to do a much better job of what is it that we are doing to meet the needs of the very high students in that 80 to 95 or 85 to 95 range, because there are things that are in place for them. Do we need to tweak them? Absolutely. Do we need to enhance them? Absolutely. Every teacher on the planet who has gone through a preparation program knows numerous strategies to meet the needs of struggling students, because we're taught to do that. This academic middle, which absolutely deserves that opportunity for enrichment and accelerated, these are our kids who absolutely, in many cases, are overlooked. They are good students, they are strong students, they participate in class, they do the things that are asked of them. However, their opportunity to be on a pathway for honors, accelerated, and IB programs, which, if I go back to when I started here 2.5 years ago, that was one of the points of emphasis that we talked about. How do we build a pathway so that all of our children have the opportunity and the access to be ready for those types of programs? If they choose not to do it, they are self-choosing with their parents, not because by default they cannot make it. So our acceleration and enrichment policy in and of itself addresses building that pathway so that we can increase the critical thinking, the rigorous quality level of delivery and quality delivery of instruction, and absolutely leveling the playing field and removing those systemic barriers that create inequities for our students. And so, what you are seeing before your eyes is the manifestation of what you as a board have championed with regard to equity, access, opportunity, looking at enrichment and accelerated environments for all of our students to be able to excel, so that when we look at that end goal of higher performing students, it looks exactly like the student population that we serve. And so I just wanted to take a minute to kind of close that loop and bring it back full circle, so that we are connecting those dots with, here's what we say we believe, here's how we go about the work of making it happen, and this is how it manifests itself, not just at the high school, not just at the middle school, but at the elementary level as well, so that we are building those pathways. Thank you for that moment.
So with that excellent moment, well-constructed big picture, we are well over the time we had originally anticipated for this, which is no surprising because it is a very novel program. It's not surprising we had questions. I would propose that we've asked a lot of questions and that it's okay for us to hold the next set of questions until the next time we talk about this. But if anybody has something, a burning desire, we are a board of consensus whenever possible. So if there's something you must ask, let me know. Okay. So thank you so much. This was really an exciting opportunity for us to talk about something that we envision happening in the future. And I appreciate Mrs. Adams really bringing it all together for us and talking about how it all fits together. So that brings us now to a portion of the agenda we call board committee reports. And so wondering if we have committee reports from any of our standing committees from audit, facilities, government relations, or policy. Ms. Smith.
No real substance at the moment because we've been at our last couple of meetings, including this one, focused on facilities. But I did want to just make sure the public was aware of our next meeting, which is January 14th at 5:30 at Academy Park. And we should have an agenda up shortly. Thank you.
Ms. Krejci.
So the audit committee has not met, but they've rescheduled their February meeting, which was originally scheduled for President's Day. Now it's going to be on February 24th. The calendar committee, of which I am a member, I guess I could say cross-district calendar committee, board administration and public will be meeting next Wednesday, but I will not be able to attend.
And policy met yesterday, and we'll be meeting again on the 5th of February.
And let's see, who do we forget? Oh, government relations, that's me. So we have met recently, I think everyone knows, with the governor's staff and also with the assembly members and state senator. We are very happy that we are going to be aligning with the Big Five, and we will be meeting with them shortly. I think we're still waiting to set that date, but we will be meeting with them to talk with them. I'm also getting very regular feedback from our politically connected constituency about the strategic smartness of that decision, so that's reassuring. And I think that's it for government relations right now. Ms. Smith.
I just want to double check. Ms. Krejci, you said you were not able to make that calendar committee
It
meeting?
was originally scheduled for next Monday, and it was rescheduled a couple days ago. So unfortunately, the rescheduling was too late for me to be able to attend.
So my
but
question was whether there might be a board member who would substitute. Is that something you'd want?
that would be wonderful. That would be wonderful if someone could.
You want to send an email later with the date so that everybody can?
I will do.
chime in?
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else on any liaison roles or any other kind of type of work that we have to do? Okay, well, that brings us to other business items. Anybody with any items of other business tonight? Ms. Adams? Oh, wait, Ms. Roaring? One moment, please.
So much. We're also going to be speaking.
Yeah, maybe Ms. Roaring.
Good evening. The audit committee also started their initial conversations regarding the area of focus for our internal audit, which will start next week. The area that has been proposed is looking at our extra time and overtime and how we are monitoring, managing, and accounting for that time in terms of payroll and other things. So with the board's consent, that's the area we'd like to point them to.
That sounds like an excellent idea. We respect the work of the audit committee and encourage you to do that work. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other business items? Sadly, I am not going to say that thing that you all want to hear me say, which is, may I have a motion to adjourn? Instead, I'm going to say, I'm going to entertain a motion to enter executive session for the purpose of discussing particular personnel matters. Do I have a motion? Ms. Mann, seconded by Dr. Chator. All in favor? That is unanimous. The board will not be returning to public session. We will adjourn the executive session and then immediately adjourn the public meeting, so we will not be returning to this room for any further public business.